Yeah. Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Kahaloyim Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai Ba'asham, Rukakwadash. Right? That's giving the Most High God praise and His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, praise. The Father name, meaning He exists, right? The existing one, right? He is. And His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, means He delivers, right? To the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who rule well, right? The elders, and from the elders before them to the elders that's now, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone are ruling well, right? Because we keep the 100% doctrine, right? We don't sway, don't bite the tongue, give it to you straight, right? To the brothers in the four winds, the hopeful elect, or should we say the elect, because the elect is out there. The elect in the four winds, preaching truth and sincerity to the Israelite foreigners who phenotype that look like another nation, but their bloodline goes back to Israel and come back to the fold. Shalom to Sister Akwaf, listen and learn it in silence. Shalom. Now this is a thing with a murdered white supremacist in South Africa, right? And I want you to see this. This video was 11 years ago. Fast forwarding to today, where you see all sorts of mayhem, riot, and Ham rising up against Esau and killing him, right? Because this is a thing that's been going on for quite some time. As you know,
the murder of the leader of the Afrikaner resistance movement, Eugene Ter-Blanche, drew thousands of sympathizers from across South Africa to his funeral in this conservative farm community. 2 black farm workers have been arrested. They were charged with murder amidst a tense face-off between whites and blacks outside the town courthouse. I want to ask you... Most white South Africans reject Ter-Blanche's extreme right-wing views, but his death brought a show of support for white farmers who say 3,000 of their group have been killed since the end of apartheid 16 years ago. Academic studies say most farm murders are criminally motivated, but mourners like Kurt Helfer say the killings are meant to drive farmers from their land. Helfer accuses the black-led government of doing nothing to stop them.
We'll have to stand together as one nation, especially all the whites, as it looks like all of our lives are in danger. So we'll definitely have to do something.
Some blame this murder on the youth leader of the ruling African National Congress, Julius Malema, who recently revived an anti-apartheid song with the refrain, "Shoot the Boer," or white farmer. ANC senior leaders have told Malema to drop the song. Emotions are also high in the nearby township Ching, where labor leaders are hearing the grievances of black farm workers.
It's an issue between an employee and an employer. Because we have seen, and the stats have proven that farm workers have been persecuted in this province.
The workers complain that some white farmers pay them a fraction of the minimum wage, make them work 7 days a week, beat them, or do not pay them at all. They say the government does nothing about it. Local resident Pule Plachi says the end of apartheid improved race relations, but he says Ter-Blanche's group, known as the AWB, has remained racist.
The relationship between blacks and whites.
now you heard them devils basically lie and say they don't agree with the other guy's his methods because he's a white supremacist. But let's see if they actually really agree. Because I have found this video, and watch this.
This strip in Cape Town, South Africa, divides the beachside community of Strand from the township of Nomzamo. They're only a few meters apart, but the people on each side live very different lives. Strand has backyards and driveways. Nomzamo is much more dense, and the people here have fewer basic services.
You don't even have to guess who
Less
lives
piped
over there,
water,
right?
less internet access, And Nonzamo is majority black, while the area across the line is majority white. If we use dots on a map to represent race, you can see how stark that divide is. If we zoom out to the whole city, we can see it's actually everywhere. And this is the case across much of South Africa. The color of your skin here often determines where you live. It also determines your quality of life. This map shows where jobs and opportunities are primarily concentrated in Cape Town. And this is where most of the city's black people live, in informal settlements called townships on the city's periphery.
People have to move by public transport for up to 3 hours a day, and they can't take care of their obligations in the community with the rest of the family because they're always working and they're always traveling.
For decades, South Africa was under apartheid, a system that wrote segregation into law. A white minority controlled where non-white people could live, work, exist. Many were forced out of their homes. In 1994, a democratically elected government took power and ended apartheid. It was supposed to be a new beginning. But a lot of the country still looks like this. And that's because South Africa's legacy of racial division goes back centuries.
Too cool for things like that.
But this country has a very dark past. As a black man, I wouldn't have even been allowed to set foot on this very beach just 20 years ago. For over a century, a white supremacist government controlled the nation and brutally oppressed black people.
They've got no education. They've only just come down from the trees.
This system of racial separation was called apartheid and was only abolished in 1994 when Nelson Mandela and the ANC came to power.
Today marks the dawn of our freedom.
There has been such extreme levels of segregation here, and knowing that that ended only 2 decades ago, I'm desperate to see how that has changed the lives of people just like me, if at all. Poverty is rife here, and today people talk of a new underclass emerging. It's not black people. It's the way to do it. But why? I can't imagine anything worse than waking up in there.
We are going to take that belongs to us.
With years of hatred to overcome.
They're going to kill us.
And both sides still playing the race card.
Most white people learned black people the things they know today.
I want to find out what life is like for the young white South Africans.
Some of them now are very racist.
Who think they are now bottom of the pile.
It's not a place to live here, not for the children.
If you are black, you're better off. If I was a white guy, that would piss me off. And discover whether the nation will ever move on from its tortured past.
Stupid, man. We will never agree. Never. That's why the world is a fuck up.
Johannesburg, South Africa's biggest city. 20 years on from apartheid, some people claim that this country is still governed by racist policies. Only this time, they say it's white people, not black people, being oppressed. What the white experience of Africa is, for me, is really, really intriguing. Some people believe since the ANC came into power, there's been a flip because all of the opportunities have been afforded to the black people, and the white people are now second-class citizens and are being neglected. But that can't be the case, surely. On the edge of the city lies a notorious camp called Coronation Park, a place where some of the hardest-hit white South Africans have made their home. Coronation Park fills me with a little bit of apprehension, and that apprehension is based on the way that they may take me, the way they may receive me, and the way they may judge me straight away, because I'm a privileged young black man. It's made me a little bit more nervous thinking about it. During apartheid, Coronation Park was a picnic place for white middle-class families, but it's become something very different. Oh, this is it. A permanent home for a white underclass. living in a rough trailer park. In the UK, you sort of get used to seeing images of young black kids in poverty, and I've never seen those same images, but with white children. I'm really thrown by that. Outsiders aren't generally welcome. All new arrivals need permission to be here from the camp leader, Irene, who's lived here for 8 years. She's agreed to let me stay. To see white people in South Africa barefoot in a settlement in a park, that's blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Because that is not what we see across the pond. I mean, we don't see that in Europe. What's the common thread? What normally brings people here?
I don't know. I think because they lost everything, there's no jobs for the white people. Did understand me? I'm not racist, or there's no jobs for our white people. You want paycheck away from this place because something can happen to you and you will end up here.
The settlement sort of stretches all the way down. Can we have a... Hello?
We're running on generators. We haven't got power yet.
With no proper sanitation and dozens of stray animals roaming around, health is a real concern. The government has repeatedly tried to shut the camp down as new people arrive all the time. How you doing? I'm Reggie. What's your name? JD, hello. 27-year-old artist JD turned up last month with his mum, 2 kids, and pregnant wife. That's absolutely beautiful.
That's what I do. I travel the whole country, painting and going all over the place.
So where have you come from?
Originally from Cape Town.
How have you ended up here in Coronation Park?
I've been hit by life, hit to my knees. It's difficult for white folks these days. It really is. We don't have the ball in our court anymore. We are not the chosen ones, if you want to put it that way, and it's the truth.
Most white South Africans are descended from Dutch settlers and called Afrikaners. During apartheid, they saw themselves as a superior race.
We cannot mix with the lower nations unless they are cultivated.
Given the best jobs and education, creating a super wealthy white elite.
70 people have been killed in some of the worst violence the country has seen in years. Stores and warehouses across the country have been looted, and more than 1,000 people have been arrested. The unrest erupted last week after former President Jacob Zuma began serving a prison sentence for contempt of court.
This warehouse in Durban was ransacked by hundreds of people. The shelves emptied, the goods carried out in bulk. It is only one of dozens of malls, supermarkets, and small shops that were targeted by looters. Like this party supplies shop in Soweto.
It's over. It's over. I've got overheads. I owe banks money. How am I going to pay this money? With what?
In some instances, armed local residents went after the looters themselves. The government sent soldiers to the most affected areas as police struggled to control the unrest.
The current situation on the ground is under strong surveillance, and we will ensure that it does not deteriorate any further. We cannot allow anyone to make a mockery of our democratic state.
The protest started last week after former South African President Jacob Zuma began serving a 15-month jail term. He was sentenced for contempt of court after refusing to appear at a corruption inquiry. The outrage of Zuma's supporters was compounded by anger over persisting inequality and poverty in the country.
And for more, let's cross over to DW correspondent Christine Mundwa, who's standing by in Cape Town. Christine, what is the current situation in the country right now?
Sarah, the looting continues overnight. More buildings were set alight. We know that the number of people arrested is well over 1,000. And we are receiving warnings now of looming food shortages because of the disruptions in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. These are key provinces when it comes to the supply of goods into the country. In many sites in these provinces, vaccine rollout has been affected. That is going to obviously have an impact on what already was a slow rollout of the vaccine here in South Africa. There is also concern about racial tensions flaring up now because of the lack of visibility when it comes to law enforcement. You now have armed citizens defending their property, and in many cases it is fueling some racial tensions. People are also worried here about the outbreak of xenophobic violence because all sorts of criminality have now emerged from this violence and looting, Sarah.
Okay, so we're seeing criminality, but I mean, by and large, Christine, who are these people that we're seeing, for example, looting?
Sarah, the people you'll see looting are underprivileged South Africans for the most part. These are people who live in informal settlements who have been pushed further into poverty because of the pandemic and the restrictions that have come with it. And so what you're hearing from the officials in this country is that these people, their poverty is being exploited. In fact, those were the words of a senior ruling party official, that the poverty of people was being exploited. But what authorities are now investigating is that these crowds, these mobs, are being stoked and prompted by a more sinister third force, because among the looters, among the people going in and stealing basic items like food and clothing, you have people lighting things up and setting things on fire who seem to want to be making destruction. And so these people are being investigated because it is believed, or at least they have reports have emerged, that there are some intelligence officials that are believed to be linked to the former President Jacob Zuma, who may be behind the stoking and mobilization of the crowds that you are seeing. But the pictures you see, these are poor South Africans, desperate and hungry, who've been pushed further into poverty in this pandemic.
Okay, so I mean, overall, it is a desperate situation for many there. The military has been sent out, we understand, to assist. Why is it proving so difficult to bring things back under control?
Well, law enforcement was stretched from the very beginning. There was limited police presence. The deployment of the military is controversial in itself, Sarah, because it is essentially due to the lack and the failure of law enforcement. But what the government in South Africa, the ANC government under Cyril Ramaphosa, does not want is a scenario where you have South Africans dying at the hands of law enforcement. They have, as we understand it from the police minister, police have been asked to act with maximum restraint. And this is why in a lot of the footage you will see police officers standing helpless, watching as the crowd continues to loot and ransack, because the narrative, of course, of this ANC government firing on black South Africans in a country with the sensitivity of the history that we have here is the last thing that this government wants to see. And of course, that military deployment in itself has been very, very limited. Only a few thousand soldiers, I think 2,000, have been deployed. It is not enough to quell the amount of unrest that we have at the moment.
Christine Mundwa walking